Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is, welcome to my latest episode of the Alphabet of Hair. And today we are looking at the letter G. And G is I'm covering the taboo subject of grey hair. Now, what I want to talk about today with grey hair is how do we get around it? How can we disguise it? How do we embrace it? Because I know for men it's seen as very distinguishing. For women it can be seen as ageing, which I have to say I disagree with. But that, unfortunately, that is what surrounds the colour grey. And so I'm bringing in my gorgeous friend Shari Reynolds, who's an amazing colourist and has featured in some of my other episodes. And she's a fantastic colourist who has over 40 years of experience, and we're going to be discussing grey hair and how to colour it, how to disguise it, and some of the latest techniques that are around and available right now in order for you to have a fantastic grey hair day. So here we are again with the lovely Shari, amazing colourist, as I mentioned, over 40 years of experience in colour. She's worked with many people, colouring the hair of Kate Blanchett, Trinny Woodhull, members of the British and Greek royal family, to name a few. Yes. And basically what we're going to discuss today is grey hair and the coverage of grey hair. As I mentioned in the intro, it's a bit of a taboo subject, grey hair, isn't it really, Shari?
It can be, yeah.
I like to think it shouldn't be. We all grow old. We all get grey hair. Very few people don't.
Or no hair.
Or
so
no
grey
hair.
hair's better than no hair.
Grey hair's better than no hair, for sure. So Shari's here to help sort of like open up the box, I guess, of what's possible in terms of grey hair, how to cover it, how to deal with it when it starts growing through, etc., etc. So Shari, what would you say is the best way to sort of ease out the first signs of grey hair?
Well, look, I think it's always that shock moment when you realise that you have got a grey hair. I don't know how old you were, Neil, but I was 27. And I tried to blame it on everyone. But you don't want to see that grey hair because it's just too startling. Most people don't want to see it, although it has become easier now. But I think that initially the first thing to do is whether you're going to be doing your own hair at home or going to a colourist, is to start looking at semi-permanent colour. Semi-permanent colour is going to blend out 80% of grey hair.
Okay.
So it doesn't have a harsh regrowth line, keeps the hair nice and healthy. Often it doesn't have ammonia in it. It's just a lot of...
So it's not so much of a commitment colour-wise in terms of it being permanent.
It's the first thing to do that's non-scary. That would be your first thing to do, rather than going straight into tinting, because there's going to be more greys. They're going to bring friends along, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to need to do that later.
Yeah.
So this
tinting
is
means as in like, when tinting is more like a permanent colour.
That's right, exactly. Also with the semi-permanent colour, you're going to get heaps of shine. It's going to feel like your own hair. It won't feel processed. And then if you're in the sun, it's not going to change colour dramatically or leave you with a regrowth line. Yeah. So that's your first port of call, really, I think, as far as that's concerned.
And would you say, because I think generally it seems that women are much more startled by the appearance of grey hair than men, right?
Yes,
but like I said, because there is this stigma attached to the fact that it's considered more ageing on women.
Yeah.
But I think, do you have a lot of men clients for grey hair? Or...
I only actually have one male client.
Oh, do you?
I'm still wondering how he even got in. Yeah. But in fact, I do grey hair coverage on him.
Right, which is interesting.
So, what I do on him is I do low lighting to bring back some of his natural colour. A tiny bit of highlighting, but mainly low lighting to match his natural colour. And it gives him a youthful look. And then we do a little bit of, on the sideburn area, maybe a little bit of what's called camouflage, camo colour. And that's just painted on, and it softens out very, very naturally. You can't tell that it's been coloured.
Right, okay. Yeah. So Shari, moving on from that, as the grey starts to come through more, which it always does, unfortunately, what's the next step that you recommend?
Right, I think when you've got more of an attack of greys coming through, quite a few there, you really want to start thinking about having a bit more of a permanent colour solution to that. That's really the only way to get the full coverage. And with the full coverage, you'll get natural tonalities to the hair, and it will look, rather than look like grey hair that's being coloured, it will look like saturated colour within the hair.
When you say saturated, what do you mean exactly?
Okay, yes, the colour will look natural. So if you look at my hair is, the front area anyway, I would say is about 60% grey. So that's the type of thing, you're kind of seeing a colour that looks more natural rather than looks like grey hair that's been coloured, and it can look a bit powdery and it's not quite convincing. So you want it to look shiny, almost a bit like teenage hair. That's really the ultimate goal there.
Yeah, because your colour looks amazing. I mean, it's kind of, because it's got all those different tones in it, hasn't it? So and I think that's sometimes when colour coverage, grey coverage can look really bad, is when it's just really block and solid and no tones within it. That's when it looks like it's a colour rather than a natural colour.
That's exactly right. So you want to have some kind of colour movement. The main thing with grey hair coverage is that there's some form of movement within the colour, which means that there'll be flecks of another colour through there.
I have a question for you, which I know I get asked sometimes. People say to me, should you have when you start colouring it more permanently, should you have the colour that you were naturally, say, 10, 15 years ago, or should you alter it slightly?
Right. I think it's fair to say everybody's different with this, but I do think that there's a slight shift towards having your hair ever so slightly lighter. Not necessarily a whole lot lighter, because that can maybe not work with your skin tonality. But remembering that when, particularly girls, maybe with men also a little bit, but your skin's changed, your colour of your skin and textures change as well. So it needs to be slightly softer, I think. So first of all, so that you don't get that kind of track-like mark coming through, because you'll have, if it's too dark, you'll have an instant regrowth, which gives the game away, and you become more conscious of it.
Well, also because generally the grey is much lighter, isn't it? So the contrast between light and dark becomes more obvious.
Yes, exactly. And it can almost look like your hair's kind of floating, and maybe that you've lost hair in the centre there. So you want to keep hair maybe 1 to 2 shades lighter. You can go lighter than that, but not necessarily. I would say mine is probably 1 level lighter than my natural. That's about it.
Yeah, because that's the other thing, isn't it? Our eyebrows can change colour as well, and also your skin tone tends to fade a little bit. It's quite common that skin tone fades a little bit as we get older.
Yeah.
So that has to be taken into consideration, doesn't it, in terms of the colour that you put onto your hair?
Definitely. I think one other thing that I just I don't think I have a client that I don't do this on now, and that is that I take the hairline 1 shade lighter than whatever I'm doing here. I'll go with 1, possibly even 2 shades lighter, so it's like a natural highlighted effect around the front. Then if the hair's pulled back, there's no telltale signs around here. So it really helps clients, it's transformative for clients to have that, where it's made lighter on the hairline. It gives them so much confidence. They just feel really good about it, because they can, in their mind, they don't think they're as grey as they were, which is great, because they don't want to think about the grey hair all the time. So I find that trick it's really paramount. It makes a big difference.
And so on the other end of the scale, what about people that want to embrace their grey? So for example, me, I've decided to embrace my grey and not colour my hair. In fact, I haven't coloured my hair since I can't even remember, partly because my scalp is very sensitive and can't take the colour very well. So I've always shied away from colour once I realised it wasn't great for me. But not necessarily just for me as a man, but as for women as well. What if somebody wants to embrace the grey? What do you suggest? Are there things that can be done, or do you just say leave it and let it be?
I think that it's very individual. Neil, your hair looks better than it has, it looks amazing. It's so suitable for you and with your colouring. So I think we're talking about the eye colour, re-looking at your eye colour, your skin colour, your hair colour, and how that all works. And if you feel that you want to move away from grey and you have a dark colour in your hair, I would recommend to have maybe a few highlights and colour them into a grey tone. but also at the root where it's growing out, just have a little bit of low lighting so that it's not too noticeable as it grows through, and you don't get overly conscious about it. That's really my best way of dealing with that situation.
Yeah, because you remember recently you coloured my mom's hair, and my mom is, you know,
she's
in her late 70s and is pretty white all over. Yeah, well, she'll be 80 this year. And but I remember her saying to me, you know, sometimes, Neil, my grey looks a little dull, and you actually did this amazing technique where you put in some shades but underneath and not on the top. And because her hair's in like a little bob, and though what it did was it gave some depth to the colour. I mean, can you explain what you did exactly?
So I worked on, Neil's mum has a little bit of natural colour back there, and there's quite a lot of grey now. So I infused into the hair some her almost her natural colour. So if I'd have showed it to her, she would have probably been a little bit shocked. But once it's all woven in, it just looks very natural under the parting, away from the hairlines, just shy of the parting, shy of the hairlines. Wove that colour in, and it gave chunkiness to the hair and youthfulness, as well as giving her a little bit of a fresher look. So the frame worked with her picture, her face. Her face was framed to perfection because the colour it lifted, even though it was a darker colour, it lifted and it made the hair look less see-through. Brought the contours of the haircut out that Neil gave her, and it just looked a bit more chunky and healthy and shiny.
And when Shari says dark, it wasn't like it was super dark, it was just darker than, they were like almost like darker grey tones, weren't they, in effect,
like a smoky, smoked out dark blonde, which is a good colour. The smoked out dark medium blondes are very, very versatile in that way. They're really easy to use and great to use on the hair. What can look amazing on grey hair, if you've got just grey hair, you want it to look even better, you can have some chunky highlights put in. They have to be, it's strange to put highlights in white hair, but it's incredible what it does. It just gives that luxe element to the hair, youthful, fresh, and then you pop a silver lavender tone conditioner over that. Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt. It's fabulous. It just gives that snap, crackle and pop.
Because naturally grey hair, because it tends to be more coarse, so it can look a bit dull, can't it? The colour can be amazing, but the actual texture can have a dullness to it, which I know that was what my mum kept saying to me. She was like, it just feels a bit, she was like, I like the colour, but it feels flat.
Exactly.
And it was like you sort of lifted out the flatness of it a little bit.
For the people that have got naturally warm undertones in their skin and hair, often it doesn't have that pop to it, and so by putting the highlights in or the lowlights, it can really just give that pop, and it can give somebody, it just makes people feel really youthful and fresh and ready to go and alive. It gives that liveness to the skin, especially when you're going to the mirror first thing in the morning. People that have greys or the hair that's maybe not quite the right colour, it can make you look a little sick. When the colour's adjusted, it can just make you feel fabulous, and that's the first thing that you need to feel first thing in the morning. Trust me on that.
Yeah. So, okay, fantastic. Well, thanks, Shari. That's
pleasure.
Hopefully covered grey hair for you. And just to finish on, all I can say is you can be great and be fabulous, like us.
Oh my gosh.
If you like this video and want to see more, then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is here, and you can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and also Instagram TV.